Hey, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and you're watching The Rural Companion. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the different types of homeschool methods. Before we get started, I wanted to share with you a little of our homeschool journey. Our family has been homeschooling since my kiddos were little. I have two students. They are currently in 9th and 8th grades, and that means I, in fact, have a high schooler, and we are navigating this as we go. For the first 6 years or so, we relied heavily on Ambleside Online, which is a Charlotte Mason education. They give you a free book list and then you purchase the materials and create a Charlotte Mason education for your students. More on that in a little bit. For the next 2 years, I created my own homeschool plans, 100% what I wanted to do with my students before they got into the rigorous work of high school. For that first year, we did Oklahoma history. I kind of did a deep dive with lots of great books. We learned about outlaws that lived here in Oklahoma. We traveled along Route 66 from the starting point to almost the ending point. We didn't quite make it to the end of it. And we just had a lot of fun doing a bunch of hands-on history in our state. The year after that, which was last year, we took a deep dive on the ancient civilizations, specifically of ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, and ancient Greece. And that was a really fun way to wrap up kind of our more gentle, more fun, more flexible years of learning. Now this year, for my oldest's first year of high school and my youngest's last year of middle school, we kind of went a slightly different way, and we are kind of merging or creating a hybrid of Charlotte Mason and a classical education. Again, more on that in a little bit. Keep watching. Now, if you want to jump forward to the various methods and their descriptions, I will have that down in the show notes below, so make sure you check that out. And now what we are here to discuss, which is the homeschool methods. All right, now let's discuss these different types of homeschool methods. I have a handful that have their own independent category, and then I have several that kind of merge into one category. So let me start with the very beginning. You have the traditional or school at home method, and this is exactly what it sounds like. You are bringing a public school to your home. So you are following pretty much the same schedule, you're following the same subjects that your local public school would offer, and you're doing that at home. This does typically include using textbooks. It also will be relying heavily on weekly quizzes and tests, and this would be a good method if you are either coming from a public school to homeschool. Maybe you want to use this as your transition year, or if your students are about to go back to public school or go to public school for the first time, you might want to do this style of homeschool method just to ease that transition period. The next type of homeschool method we have is called the classical education method. Now the classical, this is just a rich education centered on 3 main stages. You have your grammar, logic, and rhetoric stage, and during each stage you have a different focus for those years. I know for grammar it's heavy on memorization. You're memorizing dates and names and facts just for your different subjects. Once you get to logic and rhetoric, you're starting to learn how to think and to just deep dive into some of that rich historical, just the lessons from the ancient philosophers. I know, for example, Aristotle is termed the father of logic, so that would be a person that you would most likely study during that time frame. Now, some key components to the classical education: you definitely have a lot of rich literature, but you also are still memorizing facts. There are still a lot of information that is being put into the student's realm. You're working on older languages such as Latin or Greek, maybe both, and there is just a rich amount of knowledge that your student will be gaining. Okay, the third method we have is unit studies. Now this one is pretty much what it sounds like. You are studying one specific topic or concept for a specific time period or a unit. This can be very flexible based on your student. It is going to depend heavily on your student's interests and or the parents' desire for specific topics to be taught to their students. The next method we have is called unschooling. This is a method that really just doesn't have any limits or kind of like structure, if you will. It does allow the student to learn in any environment, at any time, at any place. I think it can be somewhat student-led. It's typically not parent structured, and I do believe it is one of the more controversial methods of homeschooling because the media often will paint it in a negative way. Something else that I read on unschooling is that it does embrace a natural curiosity, and it promotes kind of like the student as the discoverer, if you will. The next homeschool method that we have is called Eclectic, and this one is kind of just a little bit of everything. It probably mixes a little bit of this method and this book and this concept, and you just kind of merge it all together to make it work for your family. I do believe that this one is the most flexible, even more so than unschooling, because the Eclectic, you can use the unschooling, you could use the unit studies, you could kind of jump a little into the classical or the traditional method and just merge it all together in a way that fits your student. Okay, this final category of homeschool methods, I'm just kind of lumping all in one and calling it people-based, if you will. It is the Montessori, Charlotte Mason, and Waldorf methods. Each of these were created by a person. The Montessori method was created by Maria Montessori. It is designed for multiple ages, and it is a child-led learning environment. If you are to look up a Montessori classroom, it is definitely very natural. There's lots of wood and cloth elements in the room, acorns and, just various things that you could find out in nature. And this is just allowing the student to learn and develop skills for the real world. For example, a tray might be set up with cups and a water pitcher, and the student is learning how to fill up their own glass for their drink throughout the day. I believe that there are lots of elements that we see from the Montessori in like the Melissa and Doug activity sets. We definitely, in our home, we relied heavily on the Montessori home environment when my kids were very small, just allowing them to have chairs that were their size, having snacks kind of at their access, bringing them along in the kitchen, working beside us. Now, we did not have the learning tower, and I think that is such a cool thing, but we just pulled in a chair from the kitchen table to the kitchen counter, and my kids would always be next to me chopping or mixing. And if all else failed, I would just turn the kitchen sink on and give them some cups. And I think this is just the best way for kids to kind of learn by testing their limits and just seeing how high can I fill this cup, how what happens when I pour it, kind of like that cause and effect. I definitely love, and I will link her, I'm gonna find it, but I think it's the Montessori Mama. She has twin boys, and I just love watching her content on YouTube because it's just beautiful and it's slow and it encourages the children to be independent, and I have always loved that concept. Waldorf method, again, is a very natural, inspired method. This one is a little bit more like felty, if that makes sense. I felt like when my kids were younger and I would look up different things on Pinterest, the Montessori was all wood and cloth, and the Waldorf was all felted wool and like just a lot of felt. I don't know. All that aside, for real, the Waldorf method is very heavy into storytelling, and specifically telling a story to the child and bringing the child along, like into that story, creating drama, like so through acting, lots of movement, lots of music. And I think this is another one, kind of like the Montessori, where this just really is so great for young children as they are learning and developing so many skills like language and movement, just kind of figuring out where they are in the world, how they fit, how they belong. And I just love the beauty in both of these. And this final one in the people category, we have the Charlotte Mason method. Now this one I did save fully for last because it's near and dear to my heart. We did Charlotte Mason method for the first 6 years of my students' formal education. I cannot say enough about it. It is heavy on quality books, sitting together, you have your Bible and your nature, and just enjoying the concept of learning together. I really think it was just, honestly, it put a name to what we were already doing. So yes, we were kind of doing some Montessori, kind of some Waldorf, but then once my kids got older, we were reading, we were enjoying the Jesus Bible, Jesus Storybook Bible. We were going for nature walks every day or puddle walks when it would rain. And my kids, specifically my oldest, would just naturally want to take a notebook to the park and draw what she was seeing. And I think the focus on togetherness is what I loved the most about the Charlotte Mason method. It was kind of like, it's often referred to as a gentle feast, but if you picture a feast, it's normally at a table where everyone comes together. It's kind of like that central place to bring everyone together. And that's what I've always felt as far as the Charlotte Mason method. Now in our family, we are slowly switching from Charlotte Mason to more of a classical education. And that is primarily because I think that my students could do a little bit more work. I think my students need a push kind of in a slightly more rigorous direction. The Charlotte Mason method has been so gentle. It has helped both of my students develop writing and speaking skills through oral and written narrations. And now I think they're just ready for that next step. And I think what the classical education kind of does is maybe hone in a little bit more on the dates and the names and the places, and it is a little bit more rigorous, honestly, and I think that is perfect for high school and college prep. Both of my students do plan on going to college, and so I don't want them to get there and just have had a very simple, or not simple, but a laid back education, and I want to make sure that they get everything that they need. Now, we already have been doing Latin for the past several years. We will continue doing that. We have been studying, well, we have been reading Shakespeare, but this year we're going to start studying it, kind of getting into a little bit more of the deeper concepts. My 9th grader is going through logic, which I think this will be really fascinating. She said she's already learned so much in just 2 days, and her brain was feeling a little like stretched, which I think is exactly what we need to do. Lots of concepts, lots of terms, and it just really will be perfect for her. All right, so how do you, current or future homeschooler, pick a homeschool method? You know, I'm gonna say I think you need to go through and pick work through each one. Maybe take a little time to try out the school at home method or try out the classical. Maybe borrow a book from a friend that you know does this particular style. Definitely jump on Pinterest. You can get overwhelmed on Pinterest is what I'm also going to say, so be careful. Your local library should definitely have a bunch of resources, so make sure you check that out. And then you might just end up being kind of in that eclectic zone where you like a little bit of this style and a little bit of that style. I know for our family, we probably would just be an eclectic homeschool method because we do mostly Charlotte Mason with a little classical, and then we kind of do maybe, I hate to say unschooling because we really don't, but we also, I do have a lot of like flexible child-led approaches to our education. It's not quite as rigorous maybe as a school setting would be. Okay, before I close, I do want to say I am in no way putting down any of these methods. And in fact, when I very first started blogging, I actually had a blog called The School at Home Mama, because in my mind, we were doing school at home, even though we were following the Charlotte Mason method. And all that to say, I realized we actually weren't doing school at home, we were home educating. Now, what I do want to leave you all with is the kiddos that God has blessed you with are 100% yours. And while yes, you do have to follow your state's regulations, and I will leave a link to that in the show notes below so you can make sure you get the right just layout for your state. I wholeheartedly believe that you moms are the perfect teacher for your student. You get to pick the best curriculum for them. You get to pick the books. You get to pick what you don't do and what you will do, because you know your students best. Be confident in what you're doing and how you're homeschooling, because hands down, your student will have a teacher that loves them from the bottom of their heart. Now, I hope that this video encourages you, and if you have questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below. I'd love to chat with you, and thanks again for watching. Bye.